Kate, why don't you come up and tell us? It's 2:45 on a Thursday in April 2016. I was wrapping up work and watching out the big glass windows in my work area for my son's car to pull up. I'd made arrangements with my boss to leave work at 3 p.m. on Thursdays in April and May. It was kismet that they agreed. When I finally saw my son's car pull into the parking lot, I walked over to my boss to let him know it's time for me to go. I'll be online later, I said, but my boss was like, don't worry about it. Have fun. I had my laptop in my messenger bag and I was walking to my car. My son had parked his Nissan Maxima, a gift from his grandparents, next to me. He's standing outside the car, leaning against the driver's door with his arms crossed. His backpack was at his feet, and a snare pad and sticks were in his hand. And as I neared, he grabbed his bag and slipped in my car. Now, once in the car, he plugged in his iPhone into the car radio, and Black Sabbath's Paranoid roared from the speakers. My son had a snare pad, which is like a plastic drum thing. It mutes the drum hits, but you can still practice. So he put his snare pad in his lap and started playing along. Now, we only exchanged a few pleasantries. Hey, how was school? Are you hungry? Do you need anything before we go? Before we knew it, we were en route to East Lansing, which is about 90 minutes away from my office in Grand Rapids. Now, at the time, my son wanted to go to Michigan State University so he could be part of a marching band there. In particular, he wanted to be in the drum line. Now, when he first mentioned this to me, I was slightly disappointed. See, I'm from the University of Michigan. But I understood how important it was to him. So we drove on Thursdays to drum practice sessions at State's campus. Now, the goal was that he'd be ready for auditions when he graduated high school in 2017. Now, sessions were at 6 p.m. He'd practice with the group. I'd wait in the car. We'd have dinner around 8 p.m. and then drive home to Springfield, Michigan. It was a long day, but it was perhaps the best night of the week for me. How often do you get your teenage son in the car for 90 minutes? Now, at the time, my son wasn't entirely happy with me. Part of it was I had blown up our life when he was 13. The shortest possible explanation is that we lived with my parents since my son was a baby. I leaned into a life with them, and over time, there were unreasonable restrictions on what I could do, even though I was an adult, I was educated, I had a job, I had a car. And there's also growing animosity between me and my mother that was unresolvable. All right, I was like worried, I'm like, oh shoot.
Not me, not me.
When I finally approached my parents about taking Micah and moving out, they treated me as if I was the worst person in the world. We stopped talking, but they continued to see my son. That's why he had the car. But the divided family was a struggle for him. Now, and it was his teen years. I already had to tread carefully. Someone once described to me that teenagers are like the Apollo astronauts. During their missions, when they returned to Earth, there's a point in the stratosphere where the astronauts had no contact with NASA. This person described their kids' teenage years like that. You don't entirely know what's happening. You just have to be patient and trust and wait for them to land. And during my son's teenage years, I had to breathe. Sometimes I had to bite my tongue. And I had to remind myself that this is key to him finding himself and growing into a healthy adult. Sometimes those tactics didn't work and I lost my cool. But I feel like I was never entirely out of contact, thanks to Trent Reznor, Henry Rollins, Jonathan Davis, James Hetfield, Axl Rose, Marilyn Manson, and of course, Ozzy Osbourne. Now every week, those musicians rode in to Lansing with us, and they gave a loud, raucous soundtrack through a pastoral mid-Michigan, just waking up for spring. Now sure, I might have navigated traffic from Grand Rapids to Lansing, listening to my son practice drums to heavy metal, but by the end of that 90 minutes, my son was telling me jokes. He was sharing with me that something his friend Riley said in band. He was talking about a girl he liked. He was talking about his future. And these were not my bands. I was a child of the 80s. I loved new wave and dance. And then in the 90s, I liked grunge and some alternative radio. But I was always grateful because Ozzy and the other musicians allowed me to slowly introduce Kurt Cobain, Scott Weiland, Eddie Vedder. Now, ultimately, my son did what he wanted. He went to Michigan State, he was in the drumline, he graduated. I survived his teenage years. Now, today, when the news that Ozzy died came across the wire, my son and I sent texts to each other almost at the same time, and he sent me the crying emoji. You know, it's funny sometimes how a celebrity death can hit you. A friend of mine once said that when Adam West died, the first live-action Batman, he cried, saying he felt like his father died all over again. It's strange how someone you've never met has no idea even that you exist, may not even share the same timeline as you, can shape a moment in your life. Help you and your teenage son get through the stratosphere. Maybe not always in crystal clear communication, but ultimately they help you find each other on solid ground again later. Thank you.